front, something similar. We have ligaments going over and through behind the humerus and down the back of the elbow there. So basically the back of the arm all the way down into the hoof. Because most of the time when we're doing demos and lectures on anatomy with animals and figure, we don't usually get too much into the tendons, but I think this is very important when we can see how a lot of these tendons, especially in the neck and the stomach, brace the animal, brace this bridge together and help create, you know, a very secure structure. All right, so remember also that 2/3 of the animal is supported by the front legs, and 1/3 is supported by the rear legs. So we have all this heaviness in the front with the rib cage, the big head, the big neck. That's all supported by the front legs, and the back just supports the pelvis. But the back is where the thrust comes from, where the power comes from. The front legs take the weight, the back legs push off. Okay, there's a sternomandibular muscle in the front that will help to fill that in right there and create the front tendon. So when these joints take and carry a very heavy load, they get reinforced by these non-fatigable tendons, essentially. For example, the head, you know, you would think that it would get the head would get very heavy, but the horse has this tendon that keeps it held up all the time that doesn't fatigue it. Okay, so just that's the gist of that. Now I want to go over and just show a different view of the pelvis. Straight on back view, real simplified, with the leg attached to it. Okay, femur from the back. Next we have the tibia and the fibula. Into the heel and down to the foot. Okay, showing the rhythm here. Those lines that it's made are showing that it's not too straight. It actually has to come in at an angle, so you have, think about the stick figure, you get that kind of rhythm in there. All right, then, so we'll just take now and show the front. So there's a front of the rib cage, and then we have the scapula from the front. It's good to draw these from skeletons from life if you live near a museum where you can get a hold of that kind of thing, that sort of stuff, because then you can have you can see these bones in life from every angle. It's really important to get them from life. Sometimes it's more three-dimensional to draw them that way. Okay, so down to the humerus, into the radius and ulna simplified, down to the wrist, and below that, the metacarpal, into the toe or the phalanges. Very straight, and that's taking see, that straightening is helping to take the weight right there and enforce everything. Here's the rhythm. This is going in, and then we get something that's curving down, fairly straight, slightly angled, to a very straight bone below that, holding all that together. Back out to the side just a little bit. So in other words, no real straight bones in the body. There are some straight bones, but they're in combination with bones that are curved. So it's set up like a pillar. Okay, so now we're going to go over the horse 3/4 front construction. So laying in the action, as I always do. Just trying to get the flow. And what I'm doing in this process is trying to get basically all the shapes and in a very generalized way, and the pose. So the pose, what the legs are doing, roughly how long are the legs, am I bending a leg, am I raising a leg, am I putting more pressure on a leg, and it's sort of like a mixture between skeleton, stick figure skeleton with a lot of rhythm, and it's the underpinnings for the three-dimensional shapes that are going to go on top. So, got that. That was the first pass. Now I'd like to work a little bit on the head. Sometimes I'll do this just to make sure that the head is in proportion. Well, if the head works, then it's easy to gauge everything off of that. So get a decent head going, and the rest of the body becomes easier. Now that depends on the view sometimes. If it's a 3/4 back view, sometimes it's easier to gauge from what's closest to you, which would be the pelvis, the hindquarters. So anyways, now I'm drawing some of the undercuts here. We're talking about the undersides of things because this is not really a top view. It's a slight undershot, so we're seeing underneath the forms a little bit. Kind of a worm's eye view, but not too extreme. And so I hit some of these features. I want to get the nose placed, lips placed, eye socket, jaws very important. Ears good to get, because the ear, well, it starts to make it look more like a horse for one thing when you have the ear there. But the ear is good because that gives you like where to start the neck behind it, and or ears I should say, so we get both of those. Okay, so basically I'm working off of knowledge of the skull. When I put that eye in there, I'm thinking about what the socket's doing. Yeah, the eye is a very globular shape. Now this is the masseteric ridge below that. We're getting the cheekbone now, the zygomatic arch. So I'm just working all over the place here. And I'm thinking about fleshy parts of the head, which is muscle, and certain degree, some fat areas. And I'm also thinking about mostly planes, which when you boil that down, those are based off of the skeleton, which is the skull in this case, because we're talking about the head. So therefore, it's really important to know the head in terms of the skull, because it makes it so you can get there quicker. You're not guessing as much. You can look at the animal or look at your reference and you're like, oh, I get it. That is that because of the skull, or the muscles. All right, anyways, keeping it real simple too because it's a form drawing, but neck fits in to the body. Tapered cylinder. And the neck's bending. This pose has a little bit of action. The head's kind of arched down, the neck's kind of cocked up a little bit and bending. And when that happens, you can't be too soft with it because the horse has a lot of stuff going on there. It's a lot of muscles, you got a lot of bones, and so it creates a lot of straights. It's not just a round shape that bends, it's a flattened, angular shape. So you want to go for mostly straights against curves, but I see the neck as a series of more straight across the top, 2 big straights up there, and more of a curve across the front, below the jaw there. All right, shoulder shape is the tombstone shape, I like to call it. It could just be a box with a rounded top. Whatever you do, as long as when you're done molding it, it looks like the animal you're drawing. That is important. So I'm constantly thinking about drawing through, constantly thinking about as though I can see through my subject, and I'm not thinking about an outline here. I'm not thinking about a contour line drawing. I want to know why this animal, what makes it solid. If I want to paint this, I want to know where the shadows are going to be. I want to know what's happening. And this is our baby steps into doing that. This is actually not that hard. So if you can draw the construction and get yourself to thinking in terms of 3-dimensional drawing, setting yourself up.